Oh my gosh. Butt Feather. I don't like Crowfeather. Okay, no, I like him. I do. I just don't like the way his relationships with these characters is just treated as if it's okay. You know, Crowfeather in of himself is a really, really cool character. You know, he's a Wind Clan cat who, is overconfident. He's got that I'm holier than thou swag to him. And personally, I love those kind of characters when they're introduced in stories because you just don't see them portrayed correctly. They're just never made the way that they were intended to be. Crowfeather is meant to be this childish kid who longs to be a king, and that's just how the Aarons portrayed him. He was awesome. Crowpaw was amazing. And, you get to watch him as he develops as a character, as he begins to learn that maybe the world doesn't revolve around him and WindClan. As he falls for Feathertail and, the conflict, the personal inner turmoil that he goes through after losing Feathertail. It's one of those moments where I feel that the Aarons did really well writing a side character, which doesn't happen very often. But writing a side character who never really got the opportunity to be a quote unquote main character was still like he was really good. I think everyone knows who Crowfeather is and what he stands for, what his personality is. I don't think that was ever failed upon when it came to describing who he was. He is really, really, really awesome as a character. However, his relationships, not so much. His relationship with Feathertail, as I said, was probably one of my favorites when it comes to, well, I didn't say that, but, making it clear, his relationship with Feathertail is probably my favorite out of the 3 known relationships that he's been in. My reasoning behind this is because I can love the hell out of how Feathertail and Crowfeather's relationship came to be. You start off together, you're 2 characters who previously didn't know each other at all, knew nothing about each other. They were more or less disinterested in each other. But then you start the journey, and I don't know how many of you guys have ever watched the anime Soul Eater, but one of my favorite relationships, like not an actual relationship, but just a character friendship relationship, is between Blackstar and Tsubaki, where you have this sweet, kind, patient character who's dealing with like this over the top, outrageous, screaming dude. And literally that is what I've always imagined when I look at Crowpaw and Feathertail's relationship, because it was literally watching as, Crowpaw, he was crazy. He said what he felt like it. He was very self-centered. He was always, me. And then Feathertail came in and she could deal with that. She was capable of soothing him, making it, standing in between him and everyone else. Because let's be real, everyone else had those moments where they're like, oh my God, I'm about to throw this tiny black cat off the edge of the mountains. I swear. Like, everyone had those moments. Everyone did. And Feathertail was the one who was always the mediator, always stood in, and through this forged a inseparable bond with Crowpaw. And Crowpaw came to, leave behind his focus, his inner focus on him as well as Wind Clan being better than everyone else, to focus in on this River Clan she-cat who he's like, yo, Feathertail's dope. And his mindset began to shift into one where he did fall in love with her, and in turn she fell in love with him. For me, I felt it was one of those moments where Warriors actually successfully creates a detailed and well fleshed out relationship. While obviously, no Warrior Cat's relationship actually is entirely realistic, to a point where it makes sense for the characters, like where you're not sitting there cringing like, how did they, that was a short time for them to fall in love with each other. But they're journeying together, they're surviving with each other. I'm not that surprised that the 2 of them forged a relationship like that, and really, I can respect that. Now, then we get into the issue of Leaf Pool. And I know I love Crowfeather and Leafpool. Don't get me wrong, I love them. You know, I love the fact that they gave birth to the sweetest child alive, being Hollyleaf. I don't care what anyone said, Hollyleaf is my child. And you get Jayfeather, Jayfeather, oh my god, I have moments. I love him so much. I don't know how many of you guys saw Moon Kitty's video where Lizard Wizard was voicing Jayfeather, but it I don't know. Like, over time, Jayfeather really has grown on me. And Lion Blaze is Lion Blaze. Answer to all questions. But for me, when it comes to Crowfeather's relationship with Leafpool, it is the most complicated thing ever for me, because it's one of those things where I guess if you don't look into it too deeply, it can seem like a logical relationship. But in some places, you have to take a step back and you're like, okay, look at the bigger picture. Crowfeather literally was in recovery from losing Feathertail. He was in mourning, regardless of what you say, throughout the entirety. From the moment he gets his warrior name, you know, it's like, I want to be named in memory of Feathertail. You know, someone that he fell in love with, and he lost her. So therefore, he wanted to name himself Crowfeather in honor of his lost love, which is probably the sweetest little thing I've ever seen. Like, my heart gave a small squeeze. It was like, oh, that's so cute. That's precious. And then in comes Leafpool. And Leafpool has small interactions with Crowfeather throughout the early point, like the later points of the Great Journey, and I think a few times early on. But, you know, never really a very, very particularly prominent moment between the two of them. There was never a moment where it was like, yes, this is a thing. This is my OTP. Like, it was never a moment where you really saw it as a ship or any type of love relationship until you get to the most aggravating moment I have ever seen, where Leafpool is being chased by, I don't know, it was Shadow Clan, River Clan, one of those two. And she gets chased and almost falls off into, what, a gorge or something? I can't remember off the top of my head, but pretty much Crowfeather has this moment where he has a flashback of, well, after fighting off the cats, he has a flashback of when Feathertail was about to more or less drop to her death to stop Sharptooth, and he has like this flashback moment where he's like, and let me take a moment to explain that. When you have a moment that reminds you of a mistake, especially when it relates to someone that you've lost that you really, really care about, it tends to place an image, a falsified copy, so to speak, over reality. So for Crowfeather, you had a moment where he felt like he was redeeming himself, where he was actually getting the opportunity that he lost to finally save Feathertail, when in reality, you know, we all know she died. We all know she died. He knows she died. Everyone knows that she's dead. But it was a moment where he felt a moment of some sort of quote-unquote redemption, where, you know, he could save the cat that he didn't get to, where he finally got to, you know, he wouldn't let Leafpool die the same way he had let Feathertail die. So it was a moment where he had copied Feathertail's existence on top of Leafpool's, and thus he, as he states, fell in love with her, which I don't believe for a second. You know, love is something that is very, it's one of those things that just doesn't happen overnight. You know, I don't believe in love at first sight. I don't. I'm a firm disbeliever of it, because you can't fall in love with someone you know nothing about. Because if you meet somebody and literally like, oh my god, they're so hot, I'm in love, you know, like you're in love with their looks, not their personality, because they can have the most terrible personality. You might want to like throw a giant bear at them and watch it maul them. I don't know, you know, whatever goes through your head when you are pissed off at someone. But, you know, you have a different thought process in that moment where you see somebody or you deal with somebody very infrequently in comparison of actually spending time with them and coming to understand who they are as a person. You know, you never really know a person until you take the time out to know them. And Crowfeather and Leafpool falling in love with each other just isn't logical. Leafpool fell in love with an existence that she couldn't have. It was the concept of forbidden love, and it's literally something that traps a lot of people. As you know, medicine cats cannot have love. It's just not something that they can do. They're not allowed to have a mate. They can't take a mate. I'm pretty sure, like, it's okay if you have some weird phantom crush on a girl that existed, like, long, long, long before your greatest ancestors were ever born, before the clans even were a thing, fine. Jay Feather can have his half moon, whatever. Hollyleaf can, I don't know, have a mate that's not in the clan. I don't know. Fallen leaves. I don't know. What do you want from me? But one of my bigger pet peeves here is the concept that Leafpool didn't particularly love Crowfeather. Because when you love someone, love is something that, no one experiences the same way. But the general concept is they are someone who is precious to you and you'd be willing to give up practically everything for them. Like, Leafpool wouldn't have had any second thoughts. Like, yes, she would have been abandoning her clan, but, her love for Crowfeather would have meant more to her than her love for her clan, which, obviously, it's possible to love someone but still love something more. Like, obviously, throwing in a bit of religious spec, generally the concept is God comes before everything, which I'm not going to get into that. But genuinely, the concept here is Leafpool made the decision that she would sacrifice her future with Crowfeather in exchange for her clan and continuing on to protect them. Crowfeather, on the other hand, was even worse with this, where he was like, oh, well, when you see relationships like that in clans, Graystripe loved Silverstream so much that he was willing to, in order to protect his clan, which, let's be real, he did a very bad job of this, but, he wanted to go over to RiverClan to protect Silverstream's kids, because they were not only his children, but the byproduct of him and Silverstream's love. Crowfeather apparently loved Leafpool, but not enough to, sacrifice. Well, I mean, Leafpool couldn't have continued being a medicine cat had she been with him anyway, but it's still, like, sacrifices sometimes have to be made. Let's be real. If you really, really care about if you really, really care about someone that much, Leafpool would have wanted him to move on, which was what he did. But, I can't find love. Like, when I look at this relationship, they were willing to run away together, but really, the only reason Leafpool ran away, and I fight this till the day I die, she ran away because she had a childish argument with Cinderpelt. Cinderpelt, who was going through the facts that she knew she was going to die very soon. The same Cinderpelt who, was struggling to get Leafpool to understand that what she was doing was wrong and would destroy her in the end. She had a fight with Cinderpelt. Cinderpelt told her off and she got mad, so she childishly ran away and decided she was going to go with Crowfeather. Great. Run away. Romeo and Juliet. Wonderful. But end of the day, Crowfeather and Leafpool discover for midnight that the clan's about to be attacked by badgers and they need to protect the clan. She needs to go back and protect ThunderClan, which I don't know what a medicine cat thought she could do, but whatever. You do you, man. You do you. So she runs back and she's just in time before Cinderpelt dies to get the final words from her, and she quote unquote dies, and yeah, end of story. So really, I don't know. I just felt like Crowfeather and Leafpool's relationship was just way too complicated and really didn't consist of any sort of love. It was sort of like both of them deluding themselves, but whatever. Then you have Nightcloud and Crowfeather, and really I can go over this very quickly. Crowfeather just wanted someone to prove his loyalty. He fell in love with Feathertail, and then he ran away with a ThunderClan medicine cat. I'm sorry, but I don't know if I trust this guy very much. He has his priorities messed up. He's run away from the clan before in times of need. And even worse, he ran away with a Thunder Clan medicine cat. Like, you can't, that's one of those things that's really hard to redeem. And in order to prove his loyalty, he went to Nightcloud, who loved him, who did probably, care about him and really, wanted to be with him. And the byproduct was Breeze Pelt. But at the end of the day, that doesn't replace, what he thought he had with Leafpool and his love for Feathertail, which trumped over, anything he could have potentially had in the future with Nightcloud, which destroyed her. It was terrible. Like, I hate that. I hate the concept that you use someone for your own personal gain that way, because now, she has to struggle with her son, who doesn't understand why his father doesn't care about him as much as he does, everyone else. It it's one of those stressful moments where you come to a realization that life just sucks, and that's just what poor old Nightcloud had to deal with. And I do pity her. I honestly do. And I can understand her frustration with Crowfeather and Leafpool and everything else, because she's going through the most. She's a single mother really at this point, who is struggling to make sure her son and her father have some sort of and his father have some sort of relationship with one another, and his father wants to deny it. And he also apparently at some point had a relationship with the former Thunder Clan medicine cat, and had babies, and it's complicated. And it's one of those moments where relationships really relate, like relationships and warriors sometimes relate to real life, where things just get hectic and it's complicated. And personally, I just feel like Crowfeather would have been better off just not going after anyone. He should have just stuck with the fact that he lost Feathertail and gone off into his corner of mourning to suffer the rest of his life or something. I don't particularly know, but end of the day, hasn't stopped Crowfeather from being a really awesome warrior. He's still one of my favorites. Not my favorite, but he's still really dope. I like Crowfeather. He's decent. I mean, I feel like I've turned this into more like Phantom Rambles than Phantom Rants, but it's fine. It's fine. Fox already has rambles, so I'm gonna stick with Phantom Rants, because that's how it's been. That's how it always will be. I'm signing off now. I'm not sure if I'm making another video today. I might not. Gonna go upload these things. Bye.